What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got an interesting knife to show you. This is, let me see if I can get this all in one breath, the Gerber Applegate Fairbairn Mini Covert. And this is a very old version of this knife. This is not it's still not an uncommon knife. I believe you can still get versions of this. The versions you see now, I think, are double beveled. They look like a dagger or a bayonet grind, and are still offered fairly inexpensive through Gerber. I wanted to talk about this because I have, in previous videos, given Gerber a bad rap, and I think they do have not the best reputation right now. Some knives do, some don't. It's all, of course, a matter of opinion. If you own a Gerber and you're happy with it, then stay happy with it. You don't have to listen to my opinion, but this is an exception. This is owned by a coworker who showed it to me, and I actually, a while back, for my wife, bought her an inexpensive assisted mini Covert, and it was a newer version that was black. And I thought, it's just something she can keep in her purse. And I've since upgraded her to that S30V Kershaw Blur. But anyways, this is interesting for two reasons. One, because of the history of it and where it actually originally came from. And two, this knife, this particular one, is very old and still functioning properly. The gentleman who let me borrow it said that he purchased it secondhand in 2002, and it is 2018 at the time of this video, making this knife, since he's had it, at least 16 years old. And I believe that these knives were available in the late 90s. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm inclined to believe him given the look of the knife. This thing has seen a lot. So this version of it is made in Taiwan. It's an inexpensive folder, but look at that lockup. What's it at? Maybe 50%, something like that. Action's a little bit grindy, but you can still, whoops, you can still deploy it with one thumb. It rubs a little bit, but I imagine that you could take it apart and mess with the pivot and the body screws, and you could end up with some better action and possibly better blade centering there. The scales are likely plastic or some plastic-like material. It does have steel liners. I have no idea what the steel is. These come in a variety of different steels, and with it being at least 16 years old, I am not even going to try and take a guess. It probably wasn't an expensive knife then. This version of it is not an expensive knife currently, so it's likely some sort of entry-level steel. But, I mean, gosh, he sharpens it and has sharpened it over and over again, and the serrations are holding up decently. But for how old this thing is and how well it's doing, I gotta hand it to Gerber, at least on this one. This is pretty impressive. A lot of cheap knives seem to, function like this after a year or so, but for this thing being as old as it is, I really can't complain. It's a tip down right-hand carry only setup, which is something that he prefers. So for me, I'm not a big fan of that, but for him, it seems to work just fine. And it has no lock rock whatsoever, and that doesn't surprise me given the situation with the lockup being pretty good. Has a little bit of blade play, but again, you might be able to solve that issue by taking it apart, cleaning it, and messing with the pivot a little bit. It does have, for being the design that it is, it's got pretty good ergonomics. I like this kind of reverse choil they've got going on, but it's set up symmetrically, almost symmetrically, so that you've got an indentation to match the primary choil here. And I kind of like that. It's got a little ramp there. There's no real jimping back here, but you have a good purchase on it considering the size that it is, which is pretty small. Let's do the size comparison with the Manix 2. Now, this is the small version of the knife. I'm going to say if the Manix 2 is 8 inches overall, this is like a 6.5 inch folder, probably. Pretty thin stocks, probably 0.09 compared to the Manix, maybe 0.1. But there are, as far as I understand, there are 3 sizes that were offered through Gerber: a small, a medium, and a large. Again, I could be wrong, and I don't know what's available now. This is definitely the small version, and the little assisted one that I had was also a small version. They've got assisted versions, manual versions. They've got automatic versions that I think are part of Gerber's USA line for around $100 after a quick look on Google. But here's what's really interesting about this. So the original, and I'm not talking about the original Gerber version, this was a design by Applegate, Fairbairn, Valaton, and Bill Harsey made the original. They were all involved with making the original, and I think this is correct. I had to look this up on Arizona Customs, but I remembered something on Blade Forms reading about it. The original custom was over 10 inches long and was made by all four of those guys. Now, Applegate and Fairbairn, I think their names were probably made more famous by this knife, which was obviously a collaboration with Gerber at some point from a long time ago. But the fact that Bill Harsey and Butch Valaton, I think, were involved with this. If you are familiar with Fantoni knives, William Harsey or Bill Harsey was involved with those through Fantoni, the HBO1, HBO2, and HBO3, and they're very reminiscent, or this is very reminiscent of those, or I'm not sure how to use the word reminiscent there, but Bill Harsey's style, this military-looking style, is very present in this and the Fantoni knives. And then of course Valaton, I think the one that everybody is familiar with is his knife that was the Spyderco Valaton, I think is what that was called. But just interesting. I'm not the biggest buff on the history of all knives, but those names kind of were super familiar to me when I connected all the dots here. But the original custom piece was of course much larger, had titanium liners. I think it was a 154 cm blade steel, and was designed by four designers who really definitely knew what they were doing. And I think multiple of them, if not all of them, had involvement with the military. And for anybody who's way more familiar with those makers than I am, I'm sorry if I'm not giving them the credit that they deserve. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that. But that, as far as I know, was an incredible knife. And I think there were only 150 of those made. And that was a very appealing knife. I'm big into these thin, long, straight, military-looking designs. It's very simple, very to the point, no pun intended. And so that original custom piece I found very appealing. It was also a liner lock, but like I said, titanium. And then I think it was G10 on the outside. Could have been something else, I'm not sure, but very interesting, the history behind that. So I'm not sure how they transitioned into Gerber. Obviously it worked out because this design has been around for a very long time. You can find it, like I said, in 3 different sizes, and I don't know if they still sell the fully automatic variant, but I think that's pretty cool. If they're still made, and I'm having a little trouble deploying this one because, like I said, the action's a little bit gritty, but it does still work. If they're still made like this, I would say this is a pretty good knife. I'm going to guess that this exact version runs between $30 and $40, I'm guessing, and for the materials, that's okay. But for the design of the knife, and if it, again, like I said, if it's built like this, then this is a great build quality. And this is I think an excellent everyday carry design. The smaller one for sure, maybe the medium one. The large one seems like it might be too big for EDC if it's pushing 10 inches or over 10 inches like the original. But the smaller medium version of this, I think, is an excellent everyday carry design, definitely. So interesting. I encourage you to look that up for yourself because I think the history on it is pretty cool. And I don't want to talk more about it because I don't want to risk getting anything wrong, especially when it comes to custom makers and when there's this many makers involved with the original design of the knife or the collaboration in this case. I don't want to say anything and not be 100% sure of it. But the history behind this knife is very interesting. I encourage you to look it up. This, again, is called the Mini Covert, and the Gerber line specifically is called a Covert. I don't know what the original is called, but I know that you can find pictures of it on Arizona Custom Knives. So interesting. That is pretty much it for today, guys. I just wanted to show this off and kind of kind of, retract my statement about Gerber a little bit. They do have some designs that I don't like at all, but this knife is a representation of what they were once capable of, and that they have had some good designs. So I kind of hope Gerber steps it back up. And Gerber steps it back up, and maybe takes a different approach to their quality control, because they're certainly capable of it. But I don't know. Take what I say with a grain of salt. I just my opinion of Gerber is my own, and like I said, if you enjoy Gerber, then you should continue to enjoy Gerber. There's nothing wrong with that. But anyways, I appreciate everybody watching today. Thank you so much, and please leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. If you'd like to check out my other videos, I do of course have lots of knives that are both expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all of my content, then please subscribe to my channel and turn those notifications on, because there is definitely more coming. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.